Hello and welcome to Get the Table, a wrestling roundtable podcast with myself, Michael Sidgwick, and fellow Dudley boy, Michael Hamflett. And we are gathered here today to discuss, is wrestling TV bad and how do we save it? But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube for daily wrestling podcasts where we preview and review Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, pay-per-views, premium live events, Dynamite and Collision sometimes, maybe not no more. Hence the topic of this podcast. Yeah. We have wrestling roundtable discussions like this one, wrestler interviews on occasion, question and answer time, and we host a roundup of the week complete with a bloody good quiz, of course, on wrestle culture. Now, Hamflett, here's the deal today. TV wrestling is boring. How do we save it? Now, I'm giving the viewers, come listeners, ample warning. This is going to be a little bit down in the dumps, a little bit state of the addressy, a little bit miserable, cynical, negative, whatever. If you don't want to listen to, watch, or engage with this one, when we're going to be a little bit more miserable than we would be on an average review where there's highs and lows on most TV shows. You don't have to. You genuinely don't have to. I would recommend not. However, that caveat disclaimer aside, I haven't just pulled this out of my ass because I'm personally, subjectively, in a little bit of a mood with episodic wrestling TV. I haven't pulled this out of my ass and forced Hamflett to come into this room with me, okay? We are not recording this in July, August 2021 AEW or on the road to WrestleMania 40 when The Rock was in town every single week swearing his head off and it was goated. We're not recording this then. We are recording this in September 2025 where something might have happened for the very first time since 2019. So let's go on this chronology. 2019 starts. WWE is so abject that, like Tony Khan, he knew he had something. This is a long-winded way into it, but I'm going to make a broad point. Tony Khan was aware, having attended one of the New Japan US expansion shows in California, something's happening here. Something big is happening or something big has the potential to happen that I can facilitate. So before All In, the inaugural All In, before All In, he starts, chatting up Warner executives about, like wrestling that could finally be a bit of competition and and then he's talking to various members of the elite. We know this because it was like reported after the fact. The Young Bucks have written about it in their book. We know that Chris Jericho was flown from a Fozzy gig to make the All-In cameo at the expense of Tony Khan using the private jet. So it was all in motion. If you're Tony Khan and you're an excitable bloke, you must be, if not watching, tracking the events of WWE in 2018, giddy at the idea of launching this competition, which is a long-held personal dream project, because week after week, WWE just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, so much so that by December, they have to apologize on live television. Vince McMahon can't even bring himself to do it, but that was the point about how bad it is and how much they're going to improve. Fast forward to 2019, AEW gets announced in January. Tony Khan must be like, half thinking, this, because that old myth narrative was Vince, loves competition. Yeah. Like, his brain was soup at this point, so I don't know why people were saying it, but maybe Tony Khan's half thinking, this should prompt them into improving their product.
It was a 25-year-old take, that Vince's competition thing.
25-year-old take. But nonetheless, people kept saying it. So Tony Khan might have thought, maybe this will prompt him into doing less absolutely insane stuff. No, 2019 quite infamously becomes probably the worst artistic year in WWE history. Certainly the most nonsensical. Yeah. Certainly the most nonsensical, incoherent. AEW, after amazing start, middling B events on Bleacher Report, Dynamite crushes NXT. So in 2019, you have AEW artistically embarrassing WWE. The same thing happens against, of all backdrops, a empty arena pandemic in 2020. That's still the narrative. AEW better stylistically, or certainly doing a better job of its servicing its audience than WWE. And I know that
satisfied customer ratio not even close.
Exactly, not even close. And we know this to be true because as soon as Triple H took over 2 years later, people were allowed to then, in retrospect, go, oh God, I'm glad Triple H is here to get rid of all that nonsense that I put over at the time. But that's a separate issue.
What were those guys doing? Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah.
You know some of them. You remember them.
2021. Same again.
Arenas were filling up again.
WWE, to be fair, was doing not great business, but then towards the end of the year, Pritchard got a bit more prominent role and the ratings got better after a scare where AEW Dynamite beat Raw in the demo 2 weeks on the spin. But broadly, WWE fans, look, Roman was getting over as an act, even if the bloodline wasn't getting great as a story. So things were kind of happening in WWE's favor. But I think 2021 AEW, come on, they made their fans deliriously happy. Then 2022, Punk in AEW doesn't go particularly well. The creative after Punk MJF, that was kind of potentially the artistic peak. Everything changes in that summer. Brawl Out happens. Levesque takes over. The paradigm shift that no one ever thought would happen.
Clash at the Castle and Brawl Out, excuse me.
Yeah.
A 48-hour
Same
period.
Weekend. Yeah.
It's bizarre, that, isn't it?
That was
really
the tipping point.
tipping point. Yeah.
That was the tipping point. The Never Say Never happens. Vince is gone. Levesque takes over after some initial sort of adjustments where he's still trying to size up the audience. Happens by 2023. That build to WrestleMania 39.
Yeah.
People love it. AEW, meanwhile, fraught with systemic issues, creative burnout, whatever. 2023, late 2022, 2023, the year of the Fed.
Yeah.
2024, there's a lot of false dawns in AEW. Every time they look like they're going to get back, the It's So Over cycle starts to loop. WWE has an incredible 2024. 2025, WWE botches the Netflix launch, botches the heel turn from John Cena. AEW, within a couple of months after Cope versus Mox is out the way, does All In Texas. And you're thinking, not another one? Paradigm shift. Looks like it was happening. And now we've reached a point, for the first time since the AEW era of mainstream United States pro wrestling happens. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not encapsulating the mood properly. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on AEW because the build to All In Texas was so triumphant and the low was always going to happen. Feels to me, however, that for the first time since AEW launched, as we record this in September 2025, AEW and WWE fans alike are awarding their respective products. Yeah, at the minute it's a 7 out of 10. It's not particularly inspiring. It's been better in the past. There are certain things going on that are incredible, but we are now, if this is like there's like phases of the war, like early counter programming, Wednesday Night War, WWE comes back, AEW falls down. It feels like now we are in impromptu match versus all-star 8-man tag match, where the TVs of the respective companies are really patterned, quite uninspiring. Yes, there's other competition going on in the ratings, particularly on the sports side of things. Low ratings across the board. I don't know. It just feels like both sets of fans are like, that's all right. It's okay.
Well, first of all, I very much enjoyed that brief history of a half decade. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not a numbers tweeter, but I tweeted words to this effect the other week in response to the ratings. Actually, it was a Sean Ross Sapp tweet about everything's down. Everything's down, and what we know about Netflix and HBO Max, we have to make assumptions, but everything's down. And that was my thought. I was like, I can't remember a year in the history of both companies where both have felt, and you've kind of crystallized it there, but like I would say they're solid 6 to solid 7 era at the same time. Yeah. It's never happened yet. And the feedback, limited as it was, but from an audience that I imagine will overlap with what we're recording now, was that either like, yeah, agreement, it's not quite right, or weirdly, couldn't disagree more, AEW's, and I got this, has never been better. So I do think there is which we will get into. So I do think there's an audience that feels very strongly about this period of AEW. And this is the thing, like, we're talking subjectively about, like, periods of time and all that kind of thing, but that's what this long-form conversation is set to do, right? I didn't get any of that from the same for WWE. So I sense certainly at this point, September, we've kind of found like a perfect half-decade, halfway through the year point to do this.
Yeah.
But certainly by now, I'm sensing it from WWE. It was a harder argument for me to have in January when we were on the road to the Rumble and WrestleMania, because historically that's always going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And people are like, are you joking? There's this and this and this and this. But I felt it. We recorded that review the next day. I felt that as it was happening, the Netflix episode, and it was like disappointing for me to feel it in the moment. But yeah, like on the WWE end of things, because it seems only right that I'll do that and then you can tackle AEW.
We'll each discuss it, but if you want to take the lead on. So I've written down in my notes here, Hamflett, why isn't WWE goated these days? What went wrong? How do you improve it? Is this just a loss of form, or is episodic TV itself in need of a rethink?
It's always the latter. It's the bottom line to most of these podcasts, isn't it? About the 52-week episodic thing that will never go away. It is what was once a blessing ultimately became a curse, and then we were just stuck with the curse forever.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, because the curse made the money. But like the fact that it's not goated, and it's like a reminder that it really was for a minute. I've been working on a list. I believe you did the AEW equivalent, which, like, all positivity, if that's what you're looking for. It's going to go on the website soon about when it was just better than everything. Sidge has done an AEW one. I got a WWE one, and I set myself a little test saying, like, right, can I do every entry here based on the 2022 to 2025 period specifically? You know, everybody can watch any documentary they want talking about Tyson and Austin or the pipe bomb, or pick your favourite moment.
Don't Barry, it'll be doing that in 2 months or something.
Indeed. We're always doing it. But, like, I thought a little 3-year window just to remind myself, to refresh myself, and also test it, like a little stress test of, right, these are the moments that come off the top of my head. Was it that good? And I sent you one yesterday. I love going back and reflecting on Raw is Triple X, and I like it as an example because the Fed was goated. The Fed was goated, right? So that episode starts with the trial of Sami Zayn. I'm not going to review the whole thing, but I want to illustrate a point with this. Like, that was, without question, the hottest story in all of pro wrestling, and they opened the 30th anniversary edition of Raw with it instead of, for example,
DX.
Any number of legends burying young talent, the same nostalgic nonsense you'd witnessed over and over and
Greg
over
Valentine, Eva Mendes,
waving to the crowd, drinking at a party.
IRS, and Alundra Blaze backstage, just hanging out like old pals, like they were.
You don't miss a Raw special. No, it opened with the trial of Sami Zayn in the first commercial-free hour of the show. Why? Because that fed in to a tag team match with the Bloodline, the Usos, having to defend the tag belts against the Judgment Day. So you are using this incredibly over angle with the Bloodline, reaching a bit of an apex ahead of the Royal Rumble where Sami Zayn would turn on Roman Reigns, to elevate the Bloodline, to elevate the Judgment Day, who themselves have become kind of the hottest act on Raw, while the Bloodline are the hottest act over on SmackDown. Sami Zayn is saved from extrication from the Bloodline by Jey Uso, famously putting his hand in the way of Solo Sikoa's Samoan Spike. Jey Uso, the Uso that for the longest time has been like, you're not part of this family, but has witnessed through Sami Zayn empowering him to be brave and realise that he is, in fact, under the thumb of Roman Reigns. Finally, in that moment, realising, no, Roman, you have to actually look. He has helped us. He's been the guy for us. He's been there for us, and nobody would have expected it. Jimmy's always like the patter guy. Jay has been in like emotional turmoil over this, and he saves Sami Zayn. And he does so to illustrate the point to Roman, you've got to give him a stay of execution. He's done a lot for this family. And obviously he needed that stay of execution because Sami would actually turn when it came to saving Kevin Owens. Why? Because you're setting up a WrestleMania main event. Big stuff. But on that night, Jimmy Uso gets injured in the brawl with the Judgment Day right before the match. And Postman Pierce comes out and he's like, oh, there's a brawl going on. Like we're going to have to, like, you're going to have to surrender the belts. Like, Jimmy's injured, he can't defend. And Sami Zayn's like, I'll do it. And Jey Uso gets to say, see, Roman? Like, he wants to save the belts for the Bloodline. And Roman's like, all right, yeah, you've got a point, actually. And then, as if this wasn't, and the fans are going nuts for all of it, as if this wasn't tight enough and well plotted enough that every character makes sense and everybody's over, Postman Pierce makes the point that the reason the Judgment Day got the title shot is because Dominic Mysterio was subbed in Tag Team Turmoil. And he's like, well, you know what? If I was making that concession for them, I can make it for you. And for one night only, you can take the place. And I use that specific example to say they had already thought about the set piece all the bollocks, all the sports entertainment that like lifelong Fed heads are going to enjoy, even if it's bad sometimes. But it was the highest quality sports entertainment. They thought about the match payoff, because what was this leading to? A tag title match on Raw and a world title match at the Royal Rumble. Checks and championships, the stuff they all go to work for. And they'd even thought down to the granular detail of why it would just randomly be allowed that Sami Zayn could be an honorary tag team champion for the night. Naturally, Zayn and Jey Uso going to win. They get to be situational baby faces for the night, despite the bloodline being heels. The Judgment Day are vanquished for the time being, but they'll come again. They've suddenly found a new ceiling and they would become tag team champions. That level of plotting mixed with, which I'm an advocate for plotting, but you always ask for more. You want not just plotting, you want high quality stakes and drama and the reality, flair, the reality of the competition. That plotting colliding and coalescing with that amount of flair and that amount of promotion for the Rumble, for the WrestleMania main event to come, for the tag belts. Why? Because the tag belts are set to main event night one for the first time. The amount of things that are gotten over in 1 hour of television, because there's probably, 12 to 15 wrestlers out there that all have their own individual parts to play. That is a level of high-quality storytelling that, with several other characters, WWE, and I'm glad that we covered this week to week at the time, because you could earnestly appraise it as well, it was doing it with its mid-card. It was doing it with the main eventers, and it was trying to do it with the undercard. It was failing the women, so I can't pretend that it was perfect, because we saw, of all the things, for all the balls for Triple H to drop, it was the women's division, the one thing he'd previously championed. They were neglected, and it wasn't perfect. It wasn't. But
no hot company ever is.
No. But that mindset, because that was in January 2023, right? That mindset, and that example you can find many more across 2023 and 2024. What that mindset did was protect Cody Rhodes for an entire year when he lost his title shot to Roman at 39 and won it at 40. That mindset made maybe it's in name only, but he won the world title, a main eventer in Jey Uso. That sprung forth from all of that. That allowed, for the first time in their WWE careers, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to be main eventers as friends and enemies without having to game the system, as we used to say.
Yeah.
How do they keep getting pushed? Well, it's because they're actually pushed prospects. Elsewhere on that Raw is Triple X. Gunther scared off DX because he was being preserved as a next top guy that could exist separate from the cinema that character would historically hate.
Yeah.
And the man has gone online and said, not my kind of wrestling when I was a kid, but I've brought my wrestling to WWE and made it work. I cannot fathom a 2025 WWE that cares anywhere near as much about all of those details when they are so distracted with pandering to chud comedians for Netflix, when Triple H is so determined to make an episode of Unreal make more sense than an episode of Raw, because that's the latest vehicle putting him over rather than putting the talent over. And worst of all, and this is what I hate the most, is that with some exceptions, I'll use LA Knight here in 2025, but with some exceptions, I can't see the raft of stars they have spent enough time on to build up to the point where you could have a week on Raw where 12 to 15 talents are in one segment and they're all getting over. They have not done the work to use the Codyism truthfully, to take care with that roster. They have returned to Debbie Deeks. They've returned to bait and switches. They have returned, unfortunately, and I maybe hate this the most, to be honest, they've returned to doing the pinfall followed by the beatdown, which is almost as bad as the Debbie Deeks.
Yeah.
Because you've given, we gave you.
Nothing just happened.
We give you a 1, 2, 3, what are you complaining about?
Yeah.
That was how nobody got over. That was how you either did a finish where you immediately beat down the babyface, or the worst one for me was the babyface winning and sliding to the floor and celebrating on the ice.
Oh.
I did it with a roll-up, boss. They've returned to all those nasty, bad habits. And I can't rationalize it other than what we've seen historically, which is promoters get greedy and lazy simultaneously. They chase the pops, they chase the moments because it made them feel good when they were doing the good work, and they've taken their eye off the ball. Bookers have runs. When have we said that?
Yeah.
Bookers have runs, and Triple H's has come to an end, and his job to me in 2025 has been to extend the end of that run longer than any failing booker has in the past. I'm watching a guy with enough hot acts and a few good ideas, but not many, try to last as long as he can in the job before the cutthroat sharks at TKO go, like, sorry, Paul, your time is done. And it's just, as a WWE fan, we have fun and stuff, but like as a WWE fan, it's been sad to watch that, like, have this long, protracted, drawn out.
Not for me, I like it. I can understand why Triple H is trying to position himself as WWE's Dana White.
Yeah.
This sort of...
That's what Unreal exists to do.
Yeah. This absolutely... What is the
unmovable figure in the mechanism.
Like this indispensable guy. If he's not there, this thing doesn't exist.
Because otherwise you're just a spoke in the wheel.
Strategically, I absolutely get this approach from Triple H. Now, just to go back to the title, we have called this TV Wrestling is Boring. How do we save it? I think the answer or the solution is a lot easier for WWE. And I don't know if that is because it's a variety of factors. One being that I think a lot of people, I mean, you yourself say it's not very incident heavy. It's a lot of maintenance booking goes on. Almost by design, WWE TV is boring. Certainly a lot of the matches are formulaic and have been for years. The idea being you can't blow the people away all of the time. Otherwise, you'll just burn them out, you know? I think it's a lot easier for WWE to not be quote-unquote boring or to get their fans back on side and more vocal. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that the standards aren't quite as high for WWE, or people don't project every wrestling pipe dream they've ever had away from WWE onto AEW, for example. There's a certain standard that they just have to meet. For me, with WWE, what's happened and how do you fix it? Like, Triple H needs to get his own cock out of his mouth and stop sucking himself off, because he loves being this figurehead, this savior. It's what he's been idly dreaming about since he first sort of wormed his way into those production meetings, those creative meetings, the McMahon family. You know, he was in love with Stephanie. It's fine. I can't say that he wasn't or anything like that. But Triple H got arrogant and lazy and is obsessed with the idea of being this figurehead, this Dana White. I don't want to put him over ahead of Levesque. I don't want to put him over at all. But even Vince never said that's the Vince McMahon era now.
No.
Like, even when he quite clearly was the biggest star on the promotion, not named John Cena, and in the mid-2000s, everything was built around his character and the sagas involving his character.
He used to put himself on telly to pop a number sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it worked as well.
Yeah, it did.
Paul Levesque, calling it the Paul Levesque era, which didn't take, but that's what they said at WrestleMania 40 was the first. He's going to go mad with power here. The Netflix for me was that tipping point.
Yeah.
Like, it was so self-congratulatory. Like, we've made it. They did a show, and for the apparent storytelling company, they quite literally got this backwards. They did a show. They put on what is ultimately a fictional TV show, and they did a nice little sort of like curtain call thing at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the show, not like, oh, thanks for coming, wasn't it great? And then here's something for the live crowd. They did it at the beginning in canon, where the Netflix executives were, glad-handing, and The Rock was peeling back the curtain about how good it was, you know, playing against his established character type. I got the feeling then that they thought, oh, we've done it. We've made it. Netflix, acceptance. They just got arrogant and lazy.
Acceptance is a big one.
And now, because it's so weird how, and the AEW counter-programming stuff comes into this as well with WWE, and why it's boring, or why it's patterned, or why it feels lazy, and why it was better 2 or 3 years ago. I used to sit on this podcast and go, oh, God, they're winning.
Yeah.
Like, oh, God, that was good. Sometimes I earnestly liked it, but other times I described it as a well-oiled machine. When was the New Day turn? November. December.
Yeah.
How would, after a month, did it all fritter away? For me, a lot of it is Triple H. Like, the amount of impromptu matches, we're getting, three a show, it feels like. 3 per TV show. Disqualification finishes. It just feels like they are using their resources and what they have going for them in all of their like capacity to think and to strategize against counter-programming AEW without getting their own house in order and just crapping out these formulaic Raws.
I think, obviously we enjoy, and hopefully you do too, if you're listening or watching, long form conversations and trying to really dig in and identify specific things that they're either company, there's two in wrestling, does wrong, or that particular character, how we could use them better, whatever. Individual storylines. The heel turn of John Cena is the one that springs to mind because you are watching a generational botch happen to such an extent that the babyface turn has been supercharged, turbocharged by just the relief of getting that versus how bad the heel act was.
Tell you, man, wrestling TV, if you want to get good, be bad for a couple of years or for a long stretch and then get good, and then people really start to inflate it.
There's lots of historic support of that point. But a little bit related to that, it's really hard to quantify, but I would use WrestleMania as one of the only provable ways in which this is true. WWE, and I can say this, having watched every week of it and loving some of it, was mostly terrible for 20 years, right? Mostly terrible with little moments where there was something to keep you on the hook, but mostly terrible.
It's like that classic moments in the promotion's history happened throughout these years.
But it's a 52-week-a-year product, and it was hard to say that one single year of those 20 was good. In the way that I would, 2023, I would say it without any given thought, and I wouldn't necessarily apply that to any year.
You would put that up with 89, 97.
Absolutely. I can't say that about 02 to 2022, about a single one calendar year, right? But
2009 SmackDown was great. Carry on.
WrestleMania entered its stadium era in that period. The Royal Rumble became this, your mates want to come around your house and watch it that one night a year, right? So in those two shows, and I know you got your thoughts about the Rumble, but sort of go with us on this one. In those two shows, there was the last remaining trust of the process, right? And then in 2014 and 2015, WWE torched that with the Rumble. So there was just WrestleMania.
Yeah. But
look at WrestleMania remaining the stadium fixture. I know they fudge the numbers and whatever, but they do big houses on that one or two nights a year.
That was always the complaint, why are you fudging in demonstrably impressive numbers?
It's the biggest house in wrestling every year, right? WrestleMania. And that was this one night a year where people were permitted mostly to trust the process. And that was even when you had that run of Roman Reigns main events that stunk. Right, I mean, all-time
the
all-time bench
Taker, Triple H,
worst, right? And it was still WrestleMania, and people still turned up and traveled the world and all that. That was the one night a year where there was a process to be trusted. Probably took Triple H the bulk of 2022 to do it, but that was the most fruitful thing he could have brought back, was a trust in the process. That Netflix special, it eroded mine, and maybe I was too short with that, and maybe I should have extended more patience, who knows. But the Netflix, I think, was the first night. The Netflix Raw debut was the first night where a lot of people's trust was either questioned or eroded. And then WrestleMania was when it was it's gone. The good times can stick around a bit, but the great times are gone. And it's not impossible, it's improbable that Triple H gets that back. You hand it over to somebody else and maybe they do it. The older heads, the Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler thing, of handing the book back over to each other.
In Memphis, it would go Memphis, bang,
6
bang,
months
bang.
at a time. Yeah. So that booker, Jerry Jarrett, could only have 6 months of his best ideas, knowing that he was going to hand over to Jerry Lawler, who was going to hand over to him, and on it went. And they drew Friday night houses for years doing it that way, because there was always a sense that if you were starting to tire...
Memphis was the most well-drawing city in the US for years and years and years.
There was always something fresh on the horizon. That need has existed in WWE for most 2025, something fresh. Triple H at this point will not be told, presumably, that what he's doing is wrong, because the money keeps piling in and the audiences are big and the tickets are still... Lots of WWE commercially is solid as a rock, better than ever. But that lack of trust in the creative processes, it changes something in your brain chemistry. You look at a pay-per-view or a PLE that a year ago, 2 years ago, you would have thought, not certain on this one, but... I've got all the faith that they're going to pay off on the night. I don't go into a PLE with that anymore. I don't go into a Raw SmackDown. It's gone back to the other way where good Raw this week. It's the worst way around. Yeah. You want to be shocked at a bad one rather than a good one. And in 2025, I think most people that watch WWE that are also able to apply a bit of critical thought to it would be able to look upon it and say, it's lost a step, isn't it? It's lost a step. I see that every week on a Raw. You say about the impromptu matches, that's one I didn't even consider.
They're doing it several times every single TV show.
That's the stuff that chips away at you. It does. It chips away at you. I didn't I don't want to go into, I don't want to get into the Brock Lesnar of it all, but I think he represents something else as well. They've brought him back. I have my suspicions that they brought him back.
We can get into the Lesnar of it all.
Well,
it's a disgusting move.
I have my suspicions they brought him back as a soft launch to bring back Vince McMahon if legally he gets out of trouble, right? If that all gets settled and they've already brought back Brock Lesnar, then you suddenly have a window to bring back Vince McMahon and they might take that opportunity to do so. That's my personal belief. I don't know if that's the case, but historically, there are a lot of things that are done. Hulk Hogan returning because of the death of Mean Gene. Controversial figures being brought back around something else in order to kind of soften the blow when they come back for realsies. And I think that might be happening with Brock Lesnar here. I wasn't surprised. It's WWE. They do stuff like that.
Awful stuff routinely.
Yeah. However, in the John Cena calendar, he wasn't a necessity. Do you know what I mean? Brock Lesnar wasn't a necessity. And in terms of welcoming and gambling on a bit of bad PR, they took that for a pop? Half a pop at SummerSlam and a match that they'll get and a WrestlePalooza thing, knowing that the ESPN thing was coming.
And it makes a disgusting lot of business sense if you consider the AEW of it all as well.
Knowing what they knew then about how WrestlePalooza was going to be positioned, which we didn't when he first came back. So that's the grim reality of Brock Lesnar. And I say all that because I don't want to trivialize something that doesn't mean anywhere near as much, but I just want to touch on it. When he came out on his first TV appearance post SummerSlam was on SmackDown, where he interrupted the John Cena Sami Zayn match. And this is why I wanted to say all that. The important stuff with Brock Lesnar is that it's just kind of gross that he's back and what else that potentially allows. That's the real thing. But let's just talk about silly wrestling for a second. What really, really sucked about that was that he came out mid-match like Vince McMahon himself was booking it. John Cena and Sami Zayn having a pretty great TV match.
The crowd was really hot for it.
So into it. It was so much fun. Like John Cena, with running out of dates and unable to wrestle certain people, started adding tribute moves. It's this babyface battle till the end. It's Sami Zayn's first fighting champion defense of his United States title.
A lovely take on the 2015
really
stuff.
Great. They put the belt on him a week before to make that all play out. That's why there's still a title worth fighting for a little bit. And it's like, oh my God, I'm watching this with the kids, and we're all like kind of rooting for John Cena here, and I'm rooting it with we can't win. How does Sami actually beat him? Cena's going to get pinned tonight. And they do the Brock Lesnar thing. Brock Lesnar's appearance is inevitable. Brock Lesnar just coming out and there being no finish, and it's like, well, that's that then. That's right out of the 2010s. That is right out of nobody gives a toss about out. Don't care about John Cena. Don't care about Sami Zayn. Don't care about the United States title. Care a bit about Brock Lesnar being this force of nature that just does what he wants, and the wrestlers suffer. It was so lame. I don't even like looking at Brock Lesnar, to be honest, but I could understand after the match if Sami Zayn gets the win or John Cena shocks the world and becomes United States champion, that Brock Lesnar then attacks. And he's like, I don't care about any of this. I want you, John Cena. I want you one last time. But you don't even get a finish because that's what Lesnar does. And it's so lazy and Vince. And it's the stuff that they would go out on Raw and apologize for once upon a time because it was so rote and so tired. And how many pushes died for that kind of booking, And I was just so depressed to watch it. And one of the only other things I could think of was is that going to be a little bit in Unreal? It's like we brought chaos back and nobody saw it coming. I'm watching everything through the lens of, is this for the show about the show more than it is the show?
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
I was lost in the fiction and they found a way to pull me out of it into the reality. And I just, that's the loss of the fastball. That's the loss of the creative fastball to not have the guts to just see that one match through.
Yeah. So I'm actually feeling apprehensive about switching gears over to AEW. Your brief thoughts on how do you save it? Triple H just needs to get his head out of his arse and his cock out of his own mouth because he's really doing some masturbatory. I've won now.
I don't know why he does all that with a nose that big. You'd think that'd get in the way of both those activities, and yet.
But that's your general conclusion, do you think? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
No, as it pertains to 2025 Fed.
Yeah, just getting a little bit too big for its boots.
Yep.
Because they don't have to reinvent the wheel, WWE.
Get the whiteboards back out. You had the show Bible. Get the show Bible back out because you had it.
Because WWE doesn't need to reinvent the wheel because in comparison to AEW, WWE fans don't like wrestling, they like WWE. So they have an expectation of what they want for WWE. They have a familiarity and a comfort food vibe from getting WWE being WWE.
Yep.
All they have to do realistically is be a good version
Yes.
of WWE, and they're not allowing themselves to do that because they already think they're there.
Yeah.
And they've squandered a little bit of goodwill and got lazy and arrogant.
McDonald's fries sales go up, so they change the recipe of the fries.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? You know, like that you can go and have your fries at any McDonald's in the country and you're not going to get the best, but you're going to be very happy with your fries. And they're like, can't really be asked to use the same oil this week. We'll just use something else.
Yeah.
That would never happen, would it?
No.
That's the point of being the market leader.
I think as we switch gears over to All Elite Wrestling, it's a lot more difficult. I was in love with this promotion almost to a disproportionate degree compared to how good it actually was at various points in 2019. I love the idea of it. I love the fact that it was happening. It was surreal. And then when it became the best version of itself, I wrote an article like Hamflett. 12 times AEW was literally better than everything. Revolution 2020 felt like to me the event where this could become one of the best wrestling promotions of all time. All Out 2021 felt like the event where it did in just however many short years. When, for a variety of reasons, general creative burnout, people getting spoiled, CM Punk casting a shadow over everything, and then systemic mismanagement, Tony Khan kind of losing the plot with what he actually wants and delegating or being feckless and listening to too many producers, what have you. When AEW entered its post-peak, post-prime era, late 2022 to whenever, maybe even now still, I described AEW Dynamite because it was never actively bad. There's invariably, and I'm talking they've never done an episode of Dynamite where, I mean, they might have done it 5 times, like during those weeks. There's 2,000 people in an NBA arena and nothing's hot and I'm bored of it all. Even then, there's always been one thing I would go, that was great. One thing every week.
Usually
that
was
great. Yeah, usually a match. Too often at this point a match. I described AEW, which has got a fair few things I just don't like about it or I'm bored by, which is fine after this many years. I described AEW Dynamite as a show that I would watch where it was a 7 or an 8 out of 10 every week. You don't get 4s, but we're not really getting 9s and 10s all that often either. A 7 or an 8 out of 10 show every week that I mostly really enjoy, that I would change 100 things about. And I don't know if that's completely accurate, but I don't think it's not, because every time there's like some kind of event, incident, rating, whatever, that brings that conversation back, everyone has a different response of, well, I actually don't like this bit, actually, come to think of it. And somebody else will go, I would change that.
Residentials, we had this chat.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a uniquely AEW thing where a bad week or a bad number or an uninspiring show, people have said it before me, but the most scrutinized promotion ever just draws this response. And yet I don't necessarily think it's always over-exaggerated or disproportionate or knee-jerky. I think there are a lot of things that I would change about this promotion. And I think a lot of the reason why people have got so many wild, oscillating opinions about it is because they took it on themselves to a monopoly of ideas, if you like. Oh, we'll do the lucha, we'll do strong style, we'll sign every single wrestler available. It's broad appeal. It wants to be all things to all men, and he can't satisfy everyone that way. So,
sorry, I don't mean to cut across.
No, go on.
I think that's interesting because you have just described, when you talk about like 2019 and 2020, as like, oh my God, this is mine. Imagine like there's a million separate minds.
Yeah, I know.
How on earth do you then
sort
of account for that, really?
I'm
not trying to get them out of trouble here. But
I know. But it's maybe you could describe it as an inherently flawed business model, because you've got fans who gravitated towards AEW before it even existed, in terms of like the various, like, you know, the BTE, New Japan, Ring of Honor. A lot of BTE stuff was kind of dorky. Like, I love Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Some of their worst stuff gives me the ick. They're my favorite singles and tag team ever, respectively. There are people who probably like them more than me in terms of the whole package. But that audience is there. that wholesome audience that'll watch Renee Paquette and Holly Cameron do a duet backstage on a pro wrestling show and think, oh, isn't it cute? They're singing together.
A body changed shape there. You went so spiky.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But then there are people who watched Cody and Dustin spill each other's blood. Oh, we're getting bloodbaths and true emotion and the way it used to be, brawls, like heavy blood, proper wrestling drama. Oh, we're getting lucha. It's hard to tackle the AEW problem as we've tried to do on this podcast over years because everyone, way more than WWE, people love WWE and they want WWE, the WWE of it all.
Yeah.
The WWE-ness.
Quite singular.
It's an idiosyncratic thing that happens to also be the most broadly popular version of the form.
Yeah.
AEW doesn't, nor will it ever have that luxury, and maybe it's an inherent business model issue. But there are some things where it's like, how can you... I don't think of all those people who go, I like the party matches. Shut up about criticizing the party matches. They're exciting every week. And people going, I'm sick of these spot fests. Stuff, blah, 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 blah. Like, there are unifying things that have been so great in AEW. So why not focus on something like, you know, CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston? Should we, like, try and do more of that? Like... Kenny Omega, when he was doing sit-downy interviews very, very early on and making these matches feel like events, massive events, should we not emphasize on that kind of promotion? Because everyone loves promotion. Everyone likes to feel excited. If you could like this match or this type of wrestler or this type of vibe, or you can tolerate Excalibur after 6 years, I don't know how. Everyone likes, if there's one unifying thing about professional wrestling discourse, anything of entertainment, and we'll get to this in our conclusion, by the way. We might have planned some of this out already. It is feeling excited. I don't know if a single person on this planet, whatever thing they gravitate towards when they want to escape from the horrors of life, it is excitement. Excitement, excitement, excitement. AEW, at its core, doesn't do enough right now for me subjectively. And if you look at the general mood post All in Texas and the numbers, maybe... You know, I'm not putting words in people's mouths, but there does seem to be a collective mood shift already after All in Texas, which is not good, by the way, after so many false dawns. Like, I saw a lot of people. I was one of them. I saw a lot of people roll their eyes and like that, you know, angry yawns. Ugh, another all-star tag for money on Collision.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We reviewed All In. We sat in the studio. It's our longest one ever. I know it was a long ass show, but like 2+ hours, and like we didn't shower praise on it, but the good stuff, you're talking like AEW, it's very, very,
effusive,
very like apex.
No
stuff.
other promotion can touch the feeling of Hangman Page crying as he pries the briefcase open. You know, people, whatever wrestling they like, whatever video games they like, want to feel excited. We've said this before, Tony Khan is probably a better booker, certainly a better matchmaker than he is a promoter. He does not do enough for me right now to feel excited. So what I've written down here in my notes, in terms of how do we save it, concentrate on promotion and building matches. And I've written in the vein of the Omega promo on Mox, and it makes me almost sick to my stomach, GR, that they haven't. I understand why they haven't to a degree, because apparently their live data, it's kind of your job to retrain your audience on certain things. Their live minute-by-minute data suggests the second they try and do video packages or extensive backstagey stuff, get it back in the ring. Fans want that. So they're kind of doing what they are told by their core base. So maybe there's not a problem, but you can retrain your audience, and you maybe should take a few dips to build something better. When Kenny Omega was told, when they were doing the Road to All Out, or maybe it was even on BTE, but it was before they made television. So they had the disadvantage, but also the advantage of, as Homer Simpson would call it, the Christ-opportunity, right? Of, we don't have a TV vehicle and we need to sell pay-per-views, and we don't have the format and the live crowd to play off. So we'll do a lot of sit-downs. Cody did some amazing sit-downs on the Road to Double or Nothing. Brandy did some awesome ones in that Sean Spears feud. Like, Kenny Omega sat down and was about to cut the promo on Mox, and then they frame it as if he's just been told in that moment, Mox can't make it, right? Kenny Omega in 2019 did a better job of selling a cancelled match, a postponed match against Jon Moxley than I would say all but 2 or 3 matches on AEW television this year, with all the experience they've accrued, with all the talent they have on the microphone, that they do not get it in their hands enough, by the way, across the entire roster. I understand the circumstances where Kenny Omega could credibly sell being pissed off, and he was selling something that you were like, oh, it's postponed now, but it's going to be even hotter when it happens. So there were various, advantages Kenny could play with. But when he sat down, he gets called a bad promo, and sometimes with a live mic in his hand, he's quite nervous and jittery. He sold that goddamn thing in the context of a big MMA-style fight that was happening in advance between 2 of the best in the world. Who can you possibly guess who wins? Because they've got completely different styles. And he framed it as if you have disappointed the people on pay-per-view. What the hell do we do? This match was so goddamn big. Yeah. And he can't do that.
Disrespected as an athlete.
Yeah, disrespected as an athlete.
As a prize fighter, yeah.
There was a sporting element to it which worked massively. And I understand he can't. Kenny Omega treated it as like, that's the end of the world. It's the end of AEW. Thanks, John, you dickhead. You've ruined it. And that sparked their program in life. You can't do that to build a TV match. You can do, however, a lot of more sit-downy. This is goddamn serious stuff. Not like, oh, my rival has magically materialized in front of me backstage, because that's just what happens on American TV, and we fall into the same trap every promotion does when building TV matches, The setting, the backdrop, I think they should be building way more matches on TV in the same way Kenny tried to build that match with Moxley, or that story with Moxley. Maybe do it at the start of the show. Maybe in the same way as it became a meme, and it was weird how, like, looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event, Mark Henry. There's been enough talk. They've been talking for 20 seconds. It's also it's getting tense, really, in a way that you can believe. But that rampage model of the 2 people in the main event, which you should be building to on every show, have a legitimate beef with one another, or something's really starting to get between them, like Garcia and Darby. The Garcia-Darby match that's going to happen on the back of this week's Dynamite, they should build it like that. 2-minute, super serious, down-the-lens promos on the show. I don't think there's enough promos on Dynamite. I don't think there's enough seriousness on Dynamite. I think they are so giddy at the idea of doing too many good, quote-unquote, good matches on Dynamite, which itself, in the wake of the expanded pay-per-view calendar, is hard to get excited about.
It's not getting people over.
No.
What are you doing it for? You are throwing bumps away and throwing big match moments away. For what? Like, you are not creating a hierarchy of stars. Kyle Fletcher has not found his way into the main event or the top end of AEW through great matches alone.
Yeah.
He has worked on every aspect of his game, and he's still not really been given enough mic time.
Yeah.
But it has taken all of that, plus the biggest possible rub from your consensus best wrestler in Will Ospreay and countless other things. It's not just going out there and being part of 10-man tags or grinding out the best moments and best spots in a match.
You can get over doing that, but only to a degree.
Yeah. There's historically in wrestling TV, there's a ceiling on just getting over on that alone. Or like one can, because that's their character.
Yeah.
You can maybe afford it for one. But it is that crowded mid-card wrestling each other on rotation leaves everybody pretty much at the same level.
Yeah.
There is an ungodly amount of parity in AEW, and what that does is it just creates this like log jam where when like one person is permitted into, say for example, right now as we record, Hangman Page, the world champion, one wrestler at a time is permitted into his space, right? Because MJF was the biggest star and he's out of the way currently, and it's Kyle Fletcher. When he loses, which to talk that frankly makes it quite difficult.
Yeah.
When he loses, you just look up on the roster and you think, right, well, who's the next one? One person will be permitted to go through that little tunnel above the rest and then get their turn and then move on. It doesn't create that. So you can't, I've said this year a lot. This simplifies one of the hardest things you can do. But in 2025, when AEW was starting to peak and we were all feeling that, like, they're getting it. What you wouldn't have given for the feeling of a Stone Cold Steve Austin. That, that kind of like...
I mean, that's...
what's a better example? Because he's too big. That when a wrestler is on the come up and nothing can stop them.
Yeah.
And you tune in and you look at their quarter hour and you're like, I can't miss what they're doing because
Yeah.
I want to be on the ride because they're going to make it right the way to the top. You know, that feeling,
Yeah.
you know. One of the reasons they haven't landed upon that wrestler is because of the match overload. Because every week they'll tell you that, like,
Everyone's good.
everyone's good. They'll tell you that, like, yeah, this person's getting over for the first time, but don't sleep on the ops. Featuring young star Samoa Joe and Katsuyori Shibata.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, it's impossible for anybody to break out of that, I think. Like, and I think there's evidence going back years now that you see that nobody really does.
Yeah.
You know, and Tony Phonebolt is total bollocks because plenty of people aren't necessarily ready for the spot, but no one ever gets there.
Yeah.
No one ever gets there.
When was the last time Brody King, probably a bad example because Brody though is one of the most overacts in AEW right now, but when was the last time he cut a promo?
Yeah.
When was the last time he's been feuding off and on as with most AEW wrestlers, the Don Callis family for ages in these big tags, whatever. Yeah. I could barely recall really what his problem is with certain wrestlers, what drives them, what motivates them.
You pointed out on Dynamite, and it was a fair criticism, a scary one. How long has Willow Nightingale lived where she lives?
Yeah, I know.
Like, and yeah, top storyline, fighting with the Death Riders and stuff, but what does actually do?
Yeah.
What does she do?
Is she any more over now than she was 2 years ago?
No.
There are too many goddamn matches on Dynamite, and maybe it's the wrong time to scale it back. I'm massively in favor of doing that, by the way, especially with the expanded pay-per-view model. When people generally, I wouldn't go out and buy a ticket for a show where I'm thinking loads of it's just going to be on TV, and I'll have to sit and watch TV on a big screen in an arena. They want to watch matches.
Yeah.
So when crowds are down and they're forced into residencies and smaller intimate venues, that is in some ways the wrong time to start scaling back the matches that people want to go and see, because AEW is where the best wrestling's where you get the best matches. But if they'd done that 2 years ago and really deepened, fostered fan relationships with the characters through promos, in the ring promos,
they're just as good as matches when you're in attendance. If it's a good one,
Yeah.
you have no problem skipping a match for
maybe if they started doing that properly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Instead of this, that's 2 years ago was when like, oh, this wrestler's wrestling. This wrestler, isn't it wacky? And it's another good match. If they'd done the hard work however many years ago, we wouldn't have the venue problem now. Again, there's a lot that goes into this, so I can't sit here and reinvent the wheel of episodic TV wrestling. But we do have a broader solution. I've got a really salient point, I think, to make at the end. But just to make some little notes here, I've written put younger wrestlers over. No one believes in Daniel Garcia. At some point, you have to unsettle the established order. There is a point now where I don't think Fletcher's beaten Hangman. I don't think Garcia's going to get ultimately anything out of this association with Mox in even the medium term. That's toxic. It's a much better show than Vince McMahon's 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14 WWE. But I'm in that mindset of Ziggler's never main eventing WrestleMania.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
problem.
It's the same problem executed in a much better way, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Put some
Good
shocks
comparison, that's a
Yeah.
very helpful comparison.
Yeah.
Because that's a mindset a lot of people can remember and relate to.
Yeah, they need to get a bit more bold, and that extends to match results, which I've also written here as a note. Like, I reckon if we'd sat down between the three of us and made a game of it, not that we do bits, but if we made a bit of this, and every Dynamite and created a shared Google sheet, viewable by the world, but only edited by us, of every AEW Dynamite match, and you could track it through the edit history, who's going to win this one? I reckon we'd be getting 98%.
Yeah.
98%. And it shouldn't be less than, I don't know, 60-50. You can't Russo it, but at the end of the day, like, every single match almost is predictable. Who's going to want to watch that? What's my incentive to come back? What's my incentive to watch the show when great wrestling has been normalized, which it wasn't in 2019? I remember doing flips almost as extravagantly well in my living room as Nick Jackson and Phoenix, because that match was happening on free TV. It was wild. You either have to pay for a New Japan subscription, you either have to pay for the network when Daniel Bryan was in the ring, or you'd have to wait however many weeks for the PWG DVD to come out, the Blu-ray. They do not have that luxury anymore. They do not have that luxury anymore. So if I know who's going to win and the quality is like, yep, it's going to be good, you have to start being really bold and adventurous with your booking in terms of the results, in terms of like, what does that wrestler do after losing that?
That obvious winner, obvious loser thing was the preserve of Saturday morning wrestling for years and years and years and years, because there was jobbers and stars and there was a house show leap to promote.
Yeah, but Saturday morning wrestling, I think I'm about you talk.
I was going to say it. That was made obsolete with the introduction of Nitro 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So the mind space of tuning in as we did as kids to Saturday morning wrestling, or your version of it, and knowing, well, I'm tuning in to watch the Beverly Brothers squash some geeks. I'm not tuning in because I expect to see the Beverly Brothers
potentially murder them looking at that finish.
Let's hope so. Like, you knew that like the best chance you got of the Beverly Brothers versus LOD was going to be at a SummerSlam or whatever.
But what's happened is you've watched, oh my God, the Beverly Brothers have just killed those geeks, right? The Legion of Doom have just killed those geeks. What's going to happen when they go head to head?
Yeah.
Is a lot of this, right, not even the fault of Tony Khan or even Triple H, is a lot of this, and again, I'm going to go all over the place because it overlaps with a lot. You can't go back to Star versus Jobber and then face Star versus Jobber, heel Star versus Jobber. Oh my God, the face Star and the heel Star are going to have a match and they're so dominant. Who's going to win?
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore. You cannot earnestly get people to believe that the heels are vile because we're all too old.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go back to Ernest Heath. You can't go back to, wow, look at that aerial daring move that's just been invented that I've never seen before because everything's been done. Is a lot of this a case of the toothpaste is out of the tube and we're finished?
We are on the home straight of wrestling.
Well, I don't...
I will say this, right, to sort of...
this is a point I've made before as well, and it still hasn't corrected itself, by the way.
This is not wild as it might sound.
No, you've got a different point, I think.
Okay.
I made this point, I reckon, about a year ago at least, right? I made it. Every chapter of... in this, I don't want to say, oh, wrestling's going to die. Look at the money it's making, for Christ's sake, right? But I made the point that at every chapter, whether I even knew about it at the time or not, if I was too young, but at every chapter until about 6 years ago of my pro wrestling fandom, wherever it took me, whether I went dark, whether I was actually watching this thing or not, there was always something new, different, right? Cool.
Yep.
90s, I'm watching, the Royal Rumble 1994, and The Undertaker's doing some goofy stuff, and I'm thinking deep down it's a bit lame, but I'm still watching it, I didn't know there was an ECW, but there was, right? 96 Fed. No, Shawn Michaels Vader match wasn't very good, and Shawn Michaels, I don't think I like him that much anymore. NWO's kicking off, right? Attitude Era is hot, so that's the thing you watch for. 2005 Fed. WrestleMania 21 was goated, like one of the most ridiculously, extravagantly successful nights of all time, but everything else is crap. Our Ring of Honor's really starting to cook,
TNA was quite a nice split between two sides of the same,
Ring of Honor, as much as it basically imported its ethos from Japanese Puro, with like the emphasis on sportsmanship and long, great, dramatic, technically immaculate matches, it's more accessible Puro. CM Punk's promos are way easier to understand to an English speaker, so it's kind of better, if you like.
Yep.
PWG just goes creatively mental with its irreverent tone, its competition to pop the boys and the fans with its deranged, sometimes kayfabe breaking, stupid action, but sometimes some of the most genuinely inventive spots you've ever seen. Nick Jackson falling off a ladder thinking he's dead, but then springboarding off the top rope in that 2012 tremendous ladder match. I mean, the party vibes of PWG, that felt new and interesting. There is nothing out there. The only thing you get now really is like, straight reproductions. Mad Dog Connolly doing, the Wild Man gimmick of the 80s. I don't want to reduce it.
No.
Because some of it really is powerful. But we are in a period, just on this point of the tooth, before we get to the conclusion, really, of the tooth, because I know you've got Wrestle Culture to do. What time? 3
No, we don't today. We're all right.
Oh, fantastic. Let's keep going. To a degree, I think the toothpaste is out of the tube and you can't put that bitch back
in. You know how you were always quite cynical about the reality of NWA Power in its earliest days?
It was cosplay.
It was
ironic that they were calling AEW guys, they're cosplay wrestlers. They're not real. Mate, have you seen the font on your ring?
I think
you are the actual little boys living out your NWA fantasies here. I don't care if you're physically bigger. You are the little boys.
I think I'm going for a sacred cow, but I'm not sure if some of our audience will care that much. I think something like, for all that I think it definitely satisfies an audience, I think DPW is a little bit cosplay without the costumes.
I think so.
I think there is an audience that are so hungry, starving. They're so hungry for just enough for the wrestling, just like you remember it, that DPW with very straight down the line, mostly very logical storylines and favoured nations indie wrestlers.
I do appreciate the level of detail they put into making the moves feel more impactful, you know.
And, you know, a lot of wrestling is about curating a vibe and making the audience feel part of that vibe, and they've done that very successfully. But speaking as somebody who, you know, Dr. Fedder, it's not a joke, really. That's fundamentally what I like the most. And then I'll watch AEW because there's 2 promotions. But everything you've just described there is, I think, something quite a lot of wrestling fans will be able to understand. Like, even if that just extends to, like, sort of the first flushes of NXT. Well, it's a fade, but that I like. Not that that's like one of mine would have been, say, New Japan, like 2016.
Like a major label alternative music movement.
Even
NXT.
if it's just a gentle step in a different direction, there used to be ways in which you could take that. Like, I discovered a tiny thing called New Japan Pro Wrestling midway through its biggest creative and commercial boom ever. You know, it's not like I was like, guess what I found underneath these dusty chests? It's Kenny Omega's 2016 G1. You know, there's still massive alternatives. You know. The NWO would be another example of that. Like, it was on TNT. It's still there for you. The avenue for that isn't even, you know, what have we got? TNA.
Yeah.
No, thank you, sir. Ever again. Don't promote the nemesis the system and pretend like you want to be the number 2 ever. Like, it's the level of alternative to me feels like a lot of fans desperate for it rather than just feeling it.
Yeah. No,
and that's a hard thing to...
I know, I get it.
It's a hard thing to articulate. You've got to feel it, haven't you? You've got to know that you've lived through that to see when people are maybe...
And in turn, because there ain't much else going on, I think Deadlock Pro does an immaculate job of serving that type of wrestling fan. An immaculate job. And those who... It's got this sort of, in my opinion, beloved cult rep for a reason. I do get where you're coming from with it as well. But because in turn, and maybe this means we are overstating this entire podcast, to be fair, because in turn there ain't nothing going on really out there, like New Japan, finished. Deadlock Pro, cult, how you remember it, back to basics, let's make the little things mean something. It ain't a hot movement, it ain't nothing new. CMLL does really, really well. Does really, really well.
Comments will have a go at us for their, say, for example, if they were watching, I don't know, Stardom, but that's off the top of my head. One of the many other companies we joke about it being to. If you are a fan, this is not to denigrate your enjoyment of that product, but I want to say, as somebody just trapped watching the mainstream, I promise you, it's not cutting through. If there was a singular wrestler or a singular story that was so... like in front of everything else.
Oh God, who's this Kenny Omega guy?
We'd be on it. I mean? And we'd be talking. We might not be able to talk about the pods, but we talk about it on the desks, and then we'd use it as a basis for comparison on the pods.
Yeah,
I promise you that.
But there's like nothing really cutting through, like at all. But because there ain't nothing left, that, as you say, there's probably some good stuff going on. There's probably good stuff going on everywhere. Feels a bit bleak to me, but whatever. Like, people then in turn to AEW and go, give me everything I want out of pro wrestling, please. What, a 7.5 out of 10 Dynamite? I'm bored of this. Kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. It's kind of their own making, a monopoly of ideas. I genuinely think that, and they need to do more, whether it's more of a fundamental thing. Like, I can't sit here with a morning prep when the idea popped into my head and revolutionized the episodic TV format. But in terms of fundamental principles of why we watch this and why we want to watch it, and more pertinently, as it pertains to the future, why I want to continue watching it on a fundamental basis, whether it's through more promos, angles, sit-downs, the general tone, taking itself more seriously in AEW and telling you this is serious business. It's not just worth watching, you fucking have to watch it. Like, it's not just, you know, like, oh, Jonathan Jones, oh God, Betrayal Jones over here. No, the world's changed, and this wrestler is going to articulate this to you. Fundamentally, AEW needs to get people buzzed and excited, and I think the pro wrestler, you put a microphone in their hand way more often, and then they'll get there. Maybe I don't think it's as simple as that. The rankings, who wins these matches and for what purse. They don't even see what they do with the money. They're already quite well paid. They brag. I don't want to say they brag, but they, boast, or they make certain that AEW, our wrestlers, WWE hates us because we pay our wrestlers a certain amount, a very, very generous competitive salary. And WWE hates that because that in turn forces them to pay for this competition, this bidding war for contracts. Why they're fighting over money then?
Yeah.
If I know they're really well paid. Probably still lower than,
The Bucks has been the only time that's actually made a loose bit of storyline sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This frivolous tone. Oh, you like this match? And I just want to feel excited. Maybe, like, AEW, I love the intricate overlap of it all so much that I used to say deft is a glowing endorsement every single week, right? A lot of people's favorite era of AEW was when they kind of cut all that wanky stuff out to a degree.
Yeah.
And then went big promos in 2021.
Yeah.
And early 2022. They loved the promos.
That's me.
Like, maybe it's a case of, like, if you can't change the fundamentals of how episodic TV wrestling works, it's all about selling hatred and doing a match. Selling hatred and doing a match. Maybe it is the tone. Maybe it is taking itself way more seriously, making these things matter a great deal, telling the commentary team to shut up, and making the things that you are limited to doing matter way much more by making it feel personal, by making it feel volatile, and by getting you excited about that's going to combust in a couple of weeks. Basically, pattern your promotion after CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston, and I think I would be a happy man. There's one actual shoot answer to this, but you can't do it. There is one shoot answer to this question. It's boring, it's patterned, it needs a refresh, it's uninspired. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
It's an off-season, you can't do it.
Yep.
You cannot do an off-season, as I've said many times, and other people have said it before me, because wrestling's key advantage in the TV market, which has never really took it seriously, outright resented, mocked it, only in recent years is it TV's like, kind of on our ass here. We've lost our ass.
We need the business.
We need the business. That's only a very recent development. And even then, an AEW can't go to, all right, okay, next media rights deal. AEW, we'll go to Warner, but go to a competing bidder and say, how can we have 2 months off with you? No, you're wrestling. That's your thing. You hear every single week. Football, I can't do that, but with wrestling, I can with you. I can't see that ever changing. An off-season of 3 months would help these issues a huge amount. You would just, like, Tony Khan wouldn't take a holiday, but the wrestling part of that incredible brain of his where he can juggle everything would be switched off.
Yep.
And then he could go, like, whenever I go on holiday, I genuinely get like, I wish I could talk about that on the podcast. I've just seen this on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about that on the podcast. And whenever, like, I drive myself insane during the Premier League off season, which kind of has to happen because it's an actual sport for the bodies of the actual athletes, the players. But I drive myself nuts looking forward to it. Yeah. And then you look forward to the least glamorous fixture in February, so much in August, because guess what? You've had 3 months off it. You can't. So sorry, one more thing. You can't do that ever. You can, to a degree, you can't emulate the feeling of missing out because you'll never miss out. If you were Tony Khan, if I was Tony Khan, I'd say you'll never accept help, ever. And if he does, he listens to ex-TNA producers. Don't know why you would do that when TNA was always way further away from WWE, but whatever. If I'm Tony Khan, or if I'm in his position, rather, there are certain wrestlers who I'd be aware of, they contribute great ideas. That's why they get a lot of spots. Like, I personally have a little fun with them. Dax Harwood is an ideas man. Every time he comes up with something, you can tell it's him.
Yep.
He's had a great year for that. He's spoken on that ill-fated podcast of his about ideas that he had, where I thought they should have went with that. That was great. Yeah. Dax, Mark Danielson, Will Washington, who apparently was like really quite instrumental in putting the Hangman Swerve feud together.
Yep.
Say, right, obviously you're wrestling, you're putting your own stuff together. I would give them more money and a little bit of time to be my long-term narrative team and say, what I want from you over the next 3 months is to kick ideas around. We're not putting pen to paper, even pencil. Kick ideas around of who would work well with who. Go and watch Jerry Jarrett's Memphis and those show-long storylines. What can I do that feels close to that but different that I can put my show and get people to get excited about? Oh, why am I watching this again? Oh, yeah, it's going to be a good match in the main event. And I'm not saying it's just stories. It's just matches, rather. There are obviously stories. You'd have to be brain stem dead to suggest that there are no stories. I'm not being in bad faith here. But a lot of the times it's, all right, we're doing this because the quality of the match comes first. And that is undeniable, at least to me. Go and watch Jerry Jarrett's Memphis. Go and geek out. I'm sure you'd love it, Dax and Mox and Danielson. Go and watch as chronologically as you can. People have had the hard drives, Mid-South, Memphis, all those like early adopters or pioneers even of the show-long, episodic, we're doing kind of soap opera on wrestling television format. What is the rhythm of it? What are the actual angles we can... It's wrestling. Straight up steel. Do that for 3 months. Do creative tape study for 3 months. And then people will geek out about it. They'll message each other back and forth of, oh, what if we did that angle with like Dusty or whatever? Or that one with, DiBiase was incredible.
The fun you would have being able to lift that and apply it to a new character. Yeah. Being given that a fresh coat of paint. That would be such a fun part of the job, wouldn't it?
3 months of, I'll pay you to study tape and watch wrestling together, like on Zoom or whatever, one night a week. Right? Because they should get more money if they're going to be ostensible creative team members. I'm sure they should be asking for that. Anyway, whatever. Right? 3 months of put some stuff together. It's a big sort of project in the background, right? And then go, right, have another 3 months, book my next year of television for me, right? Do a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. Who should we build around? Who should we really go for? And Mox fights for, off the top of my head as an example, you know what? Daniel Garcia, let's just go for it with him. Right, build a year around him. Build a year around somebody else if he gets injured. Do you know what I mean? Like some kind... Emulate the conditions of a TV writer's room, a proper one that has breaks, and then you might get some actual compelling long-term directions. Yeah. Replicate the conditions that you launched your own company with.
You got me thinking there about, and this has been my last point, but because I don't want it to like veer into fantasy booking, because again, I really believe this is the biggest possible picture, and there's two different mindsets. I talked about WWE and the lack of trust. If I can trust the WWE process, I'm kind of all in on all of it, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I think with AEW, it's that lack of like the amount of people that must tune into AEW Dynamite. Everybody says, well, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing my favorite wrestlers, but it's not a real feeling. It's not something visceral and guttural. It's
not like, I can't believe how last week's show ended.
Yeah. It's so rarely that.
Yeah.
Big Bill.
I need to see this. I need to see it.
As we record, Big Bill has called out Eddie Kingston to fight him on pay-per-view. And Eddie Kingston, as a person and as a character, sums up so much of what it is that I think a lot of people are asking for with AEW, because it isn't necessarily about cycling through every AEW match he's had and deciding how many stars out of 5 you're going to give it or whatever. It's about the belief in that man and that character and the person he portrays. Like when he's out there, you are 100% in with Eddie Kingston. I'm thinking Eddie Kingston, and I'm thinking of John Moxley's face-to-face. I'm thinking of CM Punk with them swearing at each other. I'm thinking of the gas canister, right?
Eddie Kingston about to literally unhinge his jaw so he can swallow CM Punk's entire body whole.
It's a slideshow of a person that, as far as I'm concerned, is 100% real in a fictional world. Big Bill has called him out, right? It is taken for granted that everybody has that similar slideshow to simply say, to throw up the match graphic and say, Kingston's accepted. He's accepted on Instagram and he's coming back, whatever. You've just used Mid-South. Of course, I go back into the well of WWE, right? But Bret the Hitman Hart called Stone Cold Steve Austin the best wrestler in the WWF, and he called him out for Survivor Series. And then we got all-timer vignettes of Austin walking down dark paths.
I think you are completely pathetic.
Crushing eggs and being like, what the hell have you done, Bret? You dinosaur. I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
That should be Eddie Kingston now. I want to see him. What the hell have you done, Big Bill? Like, you stupid, big, dumb lunk thinking that I was done and dusted. Like, intersperse it. We have more polished times, right? Intersperse it with some footage, if you've got it, of Kingston with his leg up still in a crutch with the big beard from months ago when he was as on the shelf as on the shelf could be, mixed with him walking down a pretty rough-looking neighborhood and being like, do you realise what you're saying? Because I don't think you do.
Yeah.
And build that anticipation that it's not like hard-working Eddie Kingston coming back for his first match in a year and a half. It's like Big Bill walking to his death and let all of AEW know that this guy, this dangerous figure is back. Babyface or heel, but babyface is back to be dangerous. And you've just basically, that's one of the most hyped matches on All Out. Eddie Kingston versus Big Bill becomes more hyped than 3 or 4 of your major title matches, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they have such an opportunity with Kingston to be the singular tone setter that fits into so many things all at once that kind of gets Hangman Page is the only one doing it for me at the moment, and Kingston is another one. I don't want a fantasy book, but it just makes me think of like, well, how else do you add to what you've already got? And he is such a figure with which to build that specific tone that you describe.
Yeah,
around.
it needs to take itself more seriously as well. Like, it's just so frivolous. I can feel the rant brewing, but I think it's been quite measured. So let's quit while we are ahead. And I'm very interested in hearing the comments of the listeners, come viewers, across YouTube and various podcast platforms. So let us know what you think about TV wrestling in 2025. Is it boring? Is the toothpaste out of the tube? Does it need a refresh? Give us your thoughts.
Stop your bloody moaning, Dudley boys. It's better than ever.
Give us your thoughts on X, in the comments below on YouTube, or on X at WhatCulture WWE. Whilst you're there, you can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow me at M. Sidgwick. Don't forget, by the way, if you like more of this stuff, to subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. When's this dropping, Hamflett?
Today/tomorrow, really, really soon. Audio will be out this afternoon, Friday.
Perfect.
Treat yourself this weekend. The video will be out just...
Indeed. Well, no Wrestle Culture this week. If you can believe it, Adam Wilborn's taking another day off. The new part-timer 2000 Jones over here.
Stag do. How many single minutes has he got? Ask questions.
That's questions. I think he's having it off with somebody else.
I love that bit. We don't do bits, so work that out.
Thank you very much for joining me, Hamflett. If you've made it this far especially, thank you. You are great. And there's going to be a very special thank you being sent to a certain listener/member of our community very soon. Don't think I'm going to forget that. All will be revealed. Thank you very much. We will see you soon.
Having it off.